Good morning, everyone. This is Julie McDonald with Microcom Technologies, and I'd like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar with SureCall. Today's host is Bryant Bailey, and he is their Inside Manager. He'll be presenting today, and if anyone has any questions, please feel free to submit them in the question box, and I'll read them off to Bryant, and he'll answer them at the end of today's presentation. Bryant, so much for being here and for presenting this webinar with us. I am finished for now. You can go ahead and take it on over.
Julie, thanks for that introduction. Appreciate being here today. Talking about SureCall's product specifically within the mobile and RV channels. And so again, as Julie mentioned, my name is Bryant Bailey, Inside Sales Manager here with SureCall. My email, my phone number there. If I can be of any of assistance on any of the product, please let me know. I'd love to be able to help you. So a lot of questions are asked. What makes SureCall different within the industry? There's 5 main points. SureCall originally was started, and we've done very well in the enterprise light commercial space with our product. So in building type of application. We're industry-leading performance, top quality materials, engineered to last. The product we use, the components, the boards, everything that we use, we're designing with an enterprise quality product that, of course, we're using in a consumer device now, which we'll be talking about on our mobile and our RV product. All of our product covers and enhances the North America carriers and their signals, and our leading customer satisfaction to add in there as well. We have a phenomenal customer support department. Handles 24/7, handles the calls as far as the support side of things. If you have any questions there's a slide towards the end that we'll be able to. You'll have their contact information as well. So how does it work? How do our cellular boosters work, and why would they be valuable to a customer? Turning weak cellular signals into strong signal. As there's the distance from the cell towers, obstruction, terrain can cause the weakening of cellular connectivity. For the big towers, the challenge that they have with distance to the vehicle, to the cell phone, terrain, obstructions, as I mentioned, as big of a challenge as that is for the cell tower, is sometimes 50 to 100 feet off the ground, propagating and sending signal to your cell phone. How big of a challenge it is for your cell phone to then turn around and relay that message back to that cell tower. It definitely is a two-way communication when you're speaking to somebody, streaming data, whatever it might be. So our product comes in, it's very handy in the case of receiving signal that's weak, enhancing that signal, and then rebroadcasting that back to the cell tower. So vehicles can also create an obstruction. So when you're inside your vehicle, cars, trucks, SUVs, fleet vehicles, we see on average roughly about 10 times the power degradation because of the metal, the tint, and other factors. So roughly about 10 dBs of attenuation as signal penetrates to the phone through that material, as well as your phone trying to send that message back to that cell tower. RVs can have the issue with that signal as well, but are usually looking in an RV situation to receive and send signals in a rural area further from the cell tower. And so at the end of the slide, I'll talk a little bit about how you can take a booster and increase the power to be able to maybe get a little bit further reach to that cell tower. So when you're talking about our boosters specifically, how much stronger are they from a cell phone? So you can see roughly anywhere from about 20 to 32 times the power of a cell phone. So they make up a big difference. The sensitivity and the power of the cell booster really comes into play, and it's very useful in any area that you might be having some connectivity issues. So today, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the vehicle and RV solutions that you can find through Microcom. Our newest product out is the Fusion Trek. So the Fusion Trek has taken SureCall's powerful cellular signal boosting technology and redesigned it into a plug-and-play solution that fits in the rear window of a car, truck, or SUV. So the Fusion Trek is the first cellular phone booster for vehicle that eliminates the outside antenna and cable. So it preserves the aesthetics for the vehicle while keeping you connected. And the Fusion Trek has taken the SureCall's powerful boostering technology, redesigned it for, as I mentioned, the rear, and I'll talk a little bit about this as far as mounting it in the rear window. But the biggest thing about this particular product is eliminating that outside antenna. MSRP, as you can see, is $199. Part number next to that, if you're interested in that, is the SC-Fusion Trek. So this particular product as well, to mention, boosts the voice, text, 4G and 3G frequencies. It is a single user, so it is specific for one particular phone. And so you keep that in mind as well. So again, as I mentioned, the big point with the Fusion Trek is eliminating that outside antenna. This review definitely sums it up. I've always been wanted a cell booster for my car, but been very leery because of the exterior antenna. Lo and behold, SureCall Fusion Trek doesn't have one. Case solved. Very good feedback on that, and we love hearing those stories. So as far as the installation is concerned with the Fusion Trek, you've got this on the left is the amplifier and the donor antenna all in one compartment. It has an adhesive mounting bracket for the window that you can mount right to the back of to a SUV or a vehicle or truck. The advantage as well with having your amplifier and antenna all in one housing, and as I've mentioned, that communication back to that cell tower, which is referred to as the uplink, is very important to maintain and have as strong a signal as possible. So having the amplifier and antenna built into one, we're reducing any cable loss that might be found in some other applications. It also helps with the noise to signal ratio. As we amplify signal, having the booster closer to the donor antenna communicating with the cell tower, it improves that signal to noise ratio. And on the right is if a sedan, we do have a mounting platform for it as well that you can use, again, as in any car, vehicle, or sedan. It comes in the kit. Everything's included as one, so you have several different mounting options to be able to use. So the Fusion Trek is a 26 dB enhancing amplifier. So it is good for your urban and into some of the light rural areas, but definitely something to look forward to use in that urban environment. So you have the device that's mounted on the back of the window that runs via coax cable up to the front of the vehicle, where you're having the mount that's going to sit right on your air vent. You see in the center you have a magnetic plate there as well that you can rest the phone right on that plate. Very strong magnet, so your phone's not going to slip off or any challenges like that. But as I mentioned, it's a single user, so the phone, as it rests on this device, will receive the amplification from the amplifier through this device, making it, again, that single user option. The advantage with this is that you don't have any open air path loss, so your phone is right on this the plate, and it's going to receive a very strong signal right from that particular device. So again, all of this is included into the kit. Your little event magnetic mounts and everything will come included into that as well. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about the Fusion2Go 3.0. So the Fusion2Go 3.0 has 50 dB of gain and enhances all the North America cell carriers. And it's also so this is a multi-user option. So if you're going to be using this with multiple people inside a vehicle, this is the solution that you're going to want to look for. So it is all about, this particular product is all about performance. It's a real strong amplifier. In fact, I will show you some of the proof as far as that claim. We definitely have some. I'll continue on to that, but MSRP on this particular product is $399. So as far as our claims are concerned, the Fusion2Go 3.0 has the highest output power of any mobile booster. And looking at this, where we've gone against our nearest competitor, works with all the carriers, supports 3G and 4G LTE, preserves battery life, and supports multi-users. So that's comparable to the competitor. Where we begin to differentiate is best performance for isolated areas, the best performance for the urban and rural areas, and so and the best performance for the data speeds. And this has a lot to do with our increased uplink and downlink power. So our output power has been increased substantially in this particular product. So if you're looking for any fleet vehicles or any options within your SUVs, your trucks, any hunting vehicles, anything like that you're looking for that you might be going further into the mountains, this is the product for you. This is going to provide that increased uplink power capability back to that cell tower. It also has the sensitive antenna that will receive a weak signal coming from the cell tower as well. So I'm talking a little bit about the application. So in the Fusion2Go 3.0 does have an outside antenna, a real strong earth magnet antenna that's not going to fall off. It's very durable. And again, as I mentioned, it's all about performance. And so in this particular situation, in this kit, having an antenna sitting outside the vehicle, there's no obstructions with that. So it's going to send and receive signal with the least amount of attenuation or barriers to work with. So you have an outside antenna that will sit on top of the vehicle. You have your coaxial cable that will run down into your amplifier. Your amplifier enhances, or your booster in this image, your amplifier enhances the that signal by 50 dBs, and then you have your little patch antenna that inside that will emit the amplified signal to, again, multi-users sitting inside the vehicle. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we did do a field test, real application test, that we went down into the gorge that is between Utah and Mesquite, Nevada. If any of you have traveled from Utah into like Las Vegas, you go through a very deep canyon area, very rugged, and definitely a challenge that we've seen within the connectivity side of things. So we ventured off into that area to provide a real case scenario and field test, and the results were very promising and pretty exciting. So when we set up for this test, we had a typical application: outside antenna on the vehicle, our inside antenna, patch antenna, and before the boosters before we turned it on the booster, we had roughly a negative 114 dBm signal. So even at like negative 110, that signal is very, very weak, and we're talking dBs here. And obviously not able to make or maintain a phone call. And so that's what we saw when we went and set up on this test. When we turned on the booster, the signal went from negative 114 and jumped all the way up to a negative 73 dBm, which is actually a very, very strong signal. It's a very good signal. Your call quality is going to be very good. Streaming of your data is going to be good without any interruptions. And so that was a very successful study done on the product that made us pretty excited about it. As I mentioned on the data, so the data, we went from as far as when we turned on the amplifier, we saw 12 megabytes per second speed on the downlink and 1.4 megabytes on the uplink. Now that's again very, very good, stable connectivity. And comparing to the competitor that we used on this exact same application, so we saw a negative 73 dBm, as I mentioned, as we turned on the amplifier. Our competitor saw a negative 78. So 3 dBs doubles your power, and so you can see the difference significantly between negative 73 and negative 98 was a very big difference. On the data speeds, as I mentioned, we had 12 megabytes per second down, 1.4 up. Our competitor saw 4.3 down and 0.8 up. So again, this 3.0 product, we're very excited about it. Great solution for any application that you guys might be looking at. But at the end of the day, what's important to mention is all of our product does need a usable signal. So as weak as it might be at negative 114, if there's no signal in the area, it's not going to be able to produce a signal. So it does need to have a usable signal to enhance and redistribute. So that's always important to keep in the back of your mind. So next we're going to be talking about the RV solution. Our RV solution, the Fusion to Go 3.0 RV, you have the part number and MSRP right underneath that. This amplifier has a 50 dB gain as well. It's, as you notice, there's no knobs on the top. It's all manually or automatic gain control. So it will communicate with the cell tower seamlessly as you travel down the road. Now that's a point I should have made on the mobile product as well. On the Trek and the Fusion to Go 3.0 mobile is all automatic gain control as well. So you don't need to worry about, as far as the connectivity. It'll communicate with the cell tower. It'll adjust its gain accordingly as you draw closer to a tower or drive further away from the tower. But again, providing that strong 50 dB of gain with this particular product as well. Comes with a high-performing Omni antenna, as you can see in this image. That stick-looking antenna, that's going to be your outside antenna that will mount up on the top of the RV, which will communicate with your cell tower. And your little black antenna, the little right-angle antenna, that connects right to your amplifier. So it'll be mounted right where you put your amplifier in the actual RV. So talking about the setup of the equipment, you have your Omni up on top of the vehicle, communicating with the cell tower, transferring signal through a coax cable. So you will need to penetrate your RV and bring a cable inside and route it to generally the middle of the RV or where you're going to be using or making phone calls or streaming data. Put it in the areas where you're going to be spending most of your time. And again, that right angle antenna, that's going to be communicating with your cell phone, emitting that amplified 50 dB of signal. And so this is a multi-user option and should be a great solution, obviously, in this for the RV. So talking about mounting, I get a lot of questions about what is the best, place to put the outside antenna. So a typical place to mount it is just right on the ladder up on the top of the vehicle. Generally is low enough to the vehicle. You're not going to have any obstructions where you might knock the antenna. You can drive down the road without having any issues there. It does have a built-in ground plane, so you're fine as far as mounting it just straight onto your ladder, as shown on the left side of the image. As far as putting the antenna on the mast, obviously the idea with this particular product is try to get the direct line of sight to the tower, above any obstructions that might be weakening that signal. But there is a point that you got to remember that is when you raise the antenna off the vehicle, you also have your cable, which is cable loss. So in some cases, getting higher is not necessarily always better because you're going to have a lot of cable loss associated with that as well. So in this vehicle, the RV on the right is, a good mast that I think is manageable. I've seen people go up 40 feet, but they'll use a higher quality coaxial cable to maintain that signal. So keep that in mind as you're looking at using your mast off the RVs. So as I mentioned at the beginning, what are some ways to be able to enhance the signal above and beyond what comes in the actual kit? And that's all about your antennas. So on the right is your Omni antenna. That's what comes in the kit. It's a 360-degree field view. This is what you need to use as you're using the RV kit as you're traveling down the road. As a 360-degree view, it communicates with the cell tower, and you'll have no problem as you travel to and from, the handoff from cell tower to cell tower. So the Omni antenna comes in the kit, and that's what's recommended. Now, as you get to your location and you are further off the beaten path and need to have increased connectivity, a little bit further reach to the tower, on the left side is your log periodic directional antenna. It's a very narrow field view, 30 degrees, and as you concentrate your signal, your performance of the antenna goes up. And so you can see the difference on the bottom, which is your gain difference. On the directional antenna, you're 10 to 11 dBi gain stronger than what you are on the Omni antenna. When you're talking gain, 3 dBs doubles your power. And so you can see that the directional antenna is a lot stronger than what your Omni antenna is. And so what I do just need to stress is this antenna, the directional antenna, is what you'll want to use as your stationary. You're set in the location, you're not traveling. 30-degree field view, so you will want to know the direction of the cell tower. And I did provide here in the next couple slides a website that you can go to before you leave off to your camping to maybe locate where a cell tower might be. So inside the vehicle, as I mentioned, you have the right angle antenna, which is about 1 dB gain. It is Omni, so it's going to cover a 360-degree field view as well. But in some cases, you're going to need a little bit more push for the signal to reach out into the RV a little bit further, so you're not having to sit right next to the device. And that comes as the panel antenna. It's a directional antenna, roughly 180-degree field view, but it increases the gain that much more, 5 to 7 dB gain. And so if you're combining this panel antenna with your outside directional antenna, you can begin to really see a good increase of performance. Some challenges from there to mention is, when you start increasing the coverage, you also run into some challenges with oscillation. Your outside and your inside antenna seeing each other. So you'll need to be sensitive to that. If it's too much, you can always put, on maybe the right angle antenna and reduce the gain and shrink that coverage. That's some manual ways to be able to bring that gain or that coverage down. But our booster has built-in oscillation protection. And so it actually will manually reduce its gain down, hopefully far enough that it will reduce that coverage from the inside and outside antenna seeing each other. But if it can't get down far enough, it will turn itself off. And so that's when you might have to put in an antenna, a lower gain antenna. But it's good to have those options to work with. So as I mentioned, there is a website that you can look at, which is cellreception.com/towers. And this is a fairly easy website to navigate. You just put in the zip code of the area that you're headed to, and it should be able to show you specific carriers that you're using, where the cell tower is going to be in that particular location. So that's always handy to use before you set off on the road. One thing I do always have to mention is that these devices need to be registered with the carrier. You have some URLs here that you can use to go to the carriers. You only need to do one carrier, even though our boosters enhance all the carriers. Just register it for the carrier that you are using, and you should be just fine. It's a fairly simple process, nothing too difficult on that. So the last slide here is just to talk again about our technical support. We have a great team that really supports and helps in so many ways and does a great job. Feel free to give them a call anytime. You see the hours there, the phone number. Let us know where we can support and with that. So Julie, that wraps up the slides for today and the training. Thanks again for having me on.
Thank you very much, Bryant, for that wonderful presentation. I'm sure we all enjoyed it very much. And yes, I do have some questions for you. Let's go ahead and get started with this first one here. Regarding cellular reception, of course, as one is traveling, what type of interference is caused from, say, buildings with metal and concrete? Can you speak to that a little bit?
So the question asking what causes the weakening of the signal, being the buildings and what have you, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. What kind of cellular decrease could we expect from traveling again with buildings that are made of metal and concrete? What could we expect from something like that?
It gets a little tough to actually quantify that. You do get a lot of that I've seen, a lot of reflective signal bouncing off the buildings, makes for a very inconsistent situation. But if, as far as if we're talking inside the building and that material, that exterior material of the building, and attenuation that signal, we do have some calculations on that. As far as traveling through the city and dealing with the high skyscrapers and a lot of just those challenges that we see, it's tough to really quantify. You're going to see some inconsistencies, the reflective bouncing signals, but that should be where our product should make up a difference and be able to enhance and really stabilize that weakening signal.
Thank you very much for that. I have the next question here for you. Does SureCall have attachments to add surveillance cameras through the cell boosters?
So the answer to that is no. The surveillance cameras are generally going to be working off a different frequency, probably working with your Wi-Fi, your 2.4 gig, your 5 gig. And so our mobile and RV cellular boosters enhance, upwards of 21 or 2.1 gig frequency. And so we don't have the ability to enhance any of those frequencies or have any adapters to work with that, unfortunately.
Thank you for that. Next question. You mentioned it's a single use, but if there's several people in the car, how many people can take advantage of the device if you've got, a few people and several cell phones in a car?
That is a really good question. It's user capacity challenges that we often see. On a mobile device, we usually will see safely 4 to 6 simultaneous users. Again, as the individual mentioned, you're talking different devices, possibly different carriers using different channel blocks, consuming that power. So it gets a little difficult to quantify that as well. But we do try to err on the side of caution. 4 to 6 simultaneous users using the same carrier, the same channel blocks, everything. You should be fine between 4 to 6.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next question here for you. If some folks are on a road trip and they have the Fusion Track and they're traveling outside of the U.S., say if someone drives into Canada or Mexico, does that make a difference at all?
Yeah, good question. And at the beginning, I mentioned that we do cover all the North American carriers, and so Bell, Rogers, TELUS up there in Canada, our product absolutely will work with. It'll be a seamless handoff from the United States traveling into Canada. So yeah, and Mexico's the same way. So you shouldn't see a problem at all.
Thank you very much for that. I know you talked about the strength of your cellular signal compared to other vendors. Is that the main thing that SureCall has on your competitors, for example, is the strength of your the cellular service?
Yeah, so there is, under the FCC regulations, there is a capped performance of output power, which is your 1 watt EIRP. So there is, in some way, we are all governed by a certain output power limitation. However, when you get into your components and your level of simultaneous users and your output power, the Fusion to Go 3.0 is, and I'll say this strongly, is the strongest product in the consumer class under the FCC Part 20 that you can find on the market at this time. So that is the booster enhancing all your carriers simultaneously with your 50 dB gain, 26 dBm output power. It is the strongest, best performing product, which we're really excited about.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Regarding the booster, is there a functionality that it has? In other words, are there is part of the functionality safeguards for the prevent cell tower interference? I mean, is that what you've been explaining?
That is absolutely right. So when we're dealing with the cell boosters under, as I mentioned, a certain class under the FCC, there's some certain requirements that our product, and this goes for the in-building product, mobile, everything. The biggest challenge is the oscillation and those protections there. And so all of our product has built-in oscillation protection. And so it has to have the ability to have dynamic gain control to be able to reduce its gain back far enough to be able to reduce the chances of oscillation and ultimately turning itself off. And so it does have your built-in components to be able to regulate the cell tower infractions or challenges that might be out there. So we absolutely have that built in.
Thank you very much, Bryant, and thank you for the hours that you posted up on this last slide that shows the tech support hours and phone numbers, because that's a common question that we always like to ask is the time and who we can call for support. So we've got that there. And thank you so much for answering all of those questions, and thanks to everyone for attending today's webinar. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to contact your sales rep or email us at sales@microcomtech.com. And if you wish to view any of the products mentioned or shown here today, please visit us at www.microcom.us. And remember, this webinar has been recorded and it will be uploaded to our Microcom YouTube channel so it can be viewed again. Thank you so much for your time and all this useful information to us with SureCall today. We appreciate it so very much, and we'll talk to you again next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye now.